Let's get into our next conversation now. As promised, we have Dr. Juma Mukhwana, and he is in studio with us speaking on Kenya's global bargain, how to secure the future of trade for the country. He's, of course, the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, famously known as MITI. Tunapenda kuita MITI. Welcome, Dr. Juma.
Asante, welcome to MITI.
happy to be here.
It's good to have this conversation with you. Of course, you are the PS. There are 3 PSs in that ministry of yours because there's 3 state departments. There's trade as itself. There's investment, and then you are in charge of industry. So even as you talk about Vision 2030, becoming a middle-income industrialized country, currently you're the one on that steering wheel of taking us towards industrialization. We'll get to that conversation shortly in the progress that we're making. But first, it's normally Janet Bogo sits here. We call her good girl Jano. Jano Wama quotes.
Okay.
And she gives the quotes. Yes. But today, Mariam is going to give you the quote because Jano is absent. So she's going to give you the day's quote, some words that were said many years ago by somebody, and let's see whether they make sense to you today.
It's a really easy one. It was said by a mwalimu who goes by the name Julius Nyerere in 1962. He was speaking at the University of Dar es Salaam, and he said, "The future will not be built for us, but by us. The future will not be built for us, but by us." What does that speak to you?
Okay. Yes, I think that's a powerful statement. Yeah, because I know that as Africans, sometimes we expect people to do a lot of things for us. It's very clear with the new world order, and especially the current president of the US, that if you really want to survive in this world of business, economics, competition, you have to mind your own business, and you have to do it yourself. You have to get yourself into the mud. You remember once he came in, we used to have a lot of issues. We had a lot of donations, USAID, everything, which basically threw out of the window. But if I look at a few months down the line, it looks like we are surviving. So sometimes you can get used to handouts until you think you'll drop dead when they are gone, but we can see that we can actually even sometimes do better.
Yeah.
And it happens even at the family level, that if you really want your children to go to the world and make a difference, let them do it. Don't do it for them. So I think it's an important aspect.
Set them off and tell them, go make your own future.
Please fly. I think that the wings, you have to give them the wings to fly.
Yes.
So sometimes as family, as friends, we take away your wings, and then somehow we expect you to fly. So yeah.
Right? Or even with the wings, we're still carrying you.
Yes.
You can fly.
When you want. Come back. I think it's not safe up there. So come back. Something like that.
It's not a good place to go. When you talk about, building our own future and making our own future, this was the dream of our founding fathers across the continent. Mwalimu Julius was speaking at the moment of Tanzania's independence. Our own independence leaders spoke about this. But even many years later, we have tried to put in mechanisms to work towards, building a better future for future generations. Take you back 2002, PS, and we have a new administration that comes in, the NAC administration, and they embark on even coming up with a policy, economic transformation and wealth creation, co-written by Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. And we're saying, what, we need to create job opportunities for our people so that then we can grow our own wealth and become self-reliant. It gave birth to Vision 2030, which said that by 2030, this country of ours called Kenya will be an advancing, middle-income, industrializing nation, and setting targets towards industrialization. And I think the importance of industrialization is that then we are also in charge of our own future. We are not just growing, but we are adding value, and we are also selling. We have leverage in our trade. 2025, 5 years to go to the conclusion of Vision 2030. We have an administration that's now implementing what they're calling the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, that is a ministry of MITI and you as the PS for industry. Are we a middle-income industrializing country today?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, we have come a long way. I think so. I like to step back a little bit. I'm a good student of industrial history. And so in summary, what I would say is, let's look at Africa 100 years ago. That will be 1825, is that? 1925.
Yes, 18 is 200.
1925, yes, that's when my father is being born.
Yeah.
You can see where we are. The colonial government is taking off. The land is being subdivided. Commercial farming is coming. Remember, a lot of what we call industrial crops are just being introduced: coffee, tea, wheat, maize, because we had our traditional crops, the cassava, whatever it is, potatoes. Then we have the first president, and it's laying the foundation. This is the first time that Kenyans are really testing the idea that you can invest, that you can do an industry. We are laying structures for a new government, policies, whatever it is. And then comes in the second president. And remember, we were very ambitious. I can agree with you that we set up on a very serious industrialization agenda. If you look at the Eldoret town or Nakuru town of 1980, interestingly, it was more industrialized than it is today. So we have all these Kikomi, Mountex, Rivertex, Kenit, all that, CPC in Eldoret. Then what happens? Around 1990s, we are introduced to this thing of structural adjustment. World Bank, IMF, you must liberalize your economy. These factories are monopolies. They are not competitive. And so what we do, so we impress this thing called free market. So, and what happens? Of course, we are opening up yourself to competition with products from across the world. Clearly, I think I want to, with hindsight now, say that we did not actually think through it very well.
We didn't think through it.
The idea of opening market, because then you're opening up competition into a world that is highly competitive. Technologically, we were not that advanced. And so what happens? So we basically collapse.
We took away our leverage.
Yes, we collapse our industries.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way. So when His Excellency Mwai Kibaki comes in.
It wasn't optional, was it? The SAPs?
No, because we were at a point of our economy where we were in a very difficult place.
We had we had put ourselves in a very difficult
situation. And so this is a prescription that is coming basically from a doctor saying, I want to help you, but you must take this dawa 3 times a day. So that is where we are. So we come in, and basically what we do then is that we collapse a lot of our industries. That's why we have no Mountex, we have no Kikomi, Rivertex goes under, and everything else that comes with it. And you remember most of those factories were also government factories.
Yes.
The idea then, that what the World Bank had, was that these things need to move to the private sector. In my own view, we did not have sufficient Kenyans with enough resources to actually take up in manufacturing at that point. In fact, if you notice that history, a lot of the people who took up this manufacturing were mostly government people. So they would be doing a government job and also trying to do business. That's where the Kenneth Mativas and others could come into that space, because then there was
the only ones capable.
And in my view also, we created a new phenomena called cartels. Okay? So we create, instead of creating industries, we have a lot of people now because the farmers were dealing directly with the factories, selling their tea, their coffee. Now you come into that space, and for me, where I come from, we grow maize. We used to supply this to Unga and to other millers, milling corporation in Nakuru.
Yeah.
They have now collapsed. So who comes up? There's a middleman now who buys my maize and kind of tries. So because in my view, the private sector was not very strong. What we ended up creating, instead of competitive industries, were middlemen standing in between us and the market. And we collapsed our, KFA, the KPCU, if you remember all those institutions that had been created to support the farmers. So fast forward, so I think
Kenya Farmers
KFA and all that,
Association.
and then come Kibaki, and then the dream of the Vision 2030 comes in. Remember, we are coming from a place of, do we have sufficient resources? Do we have sufficient industrial history to industrialize? Do we have the resources to even go into industry? So I'm just building the story. And so, in my view, we did not have a lot of resources. We did not have a history of manufacturing the way I would see, for example, if you go to India, you would find families that have been manufacturing for 400 years. The African history is different. When the colonialists came here, your grandfathers were busy with spears and shields in the field. So we are trying to make an industrialist out of this. So the Vision 2030 is a good vision for the country, but I always ask that before we ask about industrializing Kenya, and we must answer the question of who is supposed to industrialize Kenya. And that question, I think, is a national conversation that we have not sufficiently addressed. Because somehow, between you and me, when we think investors, what do we do as Kenyans? We spend a lot of time. Sometimes traveling the world looking for this, what is it, elusive person called an investor. So I think that the history of doing business, the history of industrial, so I think that part of, so we are very close, 5 years to 2030. We've made a lot of progress. Kenya is the leading industrialist in East and Central Africa. We are actually a big industrialist. Within Africa, we are like number 6 or 7 after South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, and Algeria. So even with that history in mind, I would say that we have done sufficiently well, but there's more that we can do. So my belief is that one of the issues that the Vision 2030 did not address very well is the people issue. That we looked at roads, we looked at rail, we looked at policies, but we did not look at, is the Kenyan person ready for industry, even at today. When a Kenyan has extra resources, when Eric Latif has 4 million shillings, is manufacturing one of his priorities?
Oh, I buy land.
Atanunua shamba.
Atanunua shamba.
There's a social pillar to the Kenya Vision 2030, and we spoke with somebody who was involved in drafting it and also leading the Kenya Vision 2030 board a couple of weeks ago. But I'll come back with a bit of a pushback on that. Mariam.
I'm thinking of an investment climate that is conducive for industry, whether it is local investment or foreign investment. I think that has been quite elusive over the years. When we think of, actually before I go into the investment climate, let me thread with now data from the ministry on the industries growing, setting up, vis-a-vis the ones packing up and leaving. What does that look like?
I would say from where I sit, when one factory closes, it becomes headline news. When 5 factories open, we hardly, it's like, I've talked this with Eric sometime. As media, I think sometimes we spend a lot of time in the mortuary and very little time in the maternity. The person who is dying is all unknown. The person who is being born is new. If you look at our industrial area, that where we used to do industries, the industrial area has grown. The whole of Mombasa Road, on the left, on the right, all the way to Mavoko, is actually industries. If you go to Nakuru today, you go to Eldoret today, to Mombasa. So in my view, we have many more industries being born. Although now there is also an issue of the contribution of manufacturing to GDP, which about 10 years ago was 10%. It has come down to 7.5%, not because manufacturing is shrinking. It's because other sectors are coming in. 10 years ago, we did not have a lot of these M-Pesa services. So what I would say, ICT, mobile telephone, internet. So the contribution of manufacturing to the GDP is reducing because other sectors are also coming in.
And we still have the same 100% to deal with.
But from where I sit, we have a seriously growing manufacturing sector. You talked about the manufacturing environment. I am in this space. And I think, honestly speaking, that if you put the top 20 Kenyan richest people, 18 are in manufacturing. They are billionaires. But being smart businessmen also sometimes when you don't want to say I'm enjoying it here. So where I come from, in Luyaland, we are polygamous. And usually we say if you want to be a second wife, please don't ask the first wife how the man behaves, because he will not tell you how good he is. So sometimes I think we are in that space where we're asking this first wife, I want to be a second wife. Is this man good enough? What do you expect her to tell you?
Yes, so let's go with this argument, with the explanation, not argument.
Yes.
That yes, we are seeing a drop in the number or percentage of contribution of manufacturing to GDP,
yes,
because we have other sectors that are coming in and growing.
Good,
okay.
Correct.
So what metrics can we use? What parameters then can we use to indicate that our manufacturing is actually growing? Is it the investment, the amount of investment in manufacturing? Right. Is it the output in manufacturing? Is it the jobs in manufacturing? What do you want us to use? Tell us, so then we can now look and see.
Yes, for example, if you look
since 2015, the number of people employed in the manufacturing sector. In the last 2015, the output of manufacturing sector. In the since 2015, like that, tuanze.
Yes, it's quite complex. But what I would say is, for example, if you look at foreign direct investment, which a lot of it goes into manufacturing, this has been growing quite a lot. If you look at the contribution of, for example, manufacturing to even our taxes, this is growing. If you look at employment,
has it been consistently growing? Because I'll point I'll point this to you.
We've had issues
by 2012.
Yes,
manufacturing contribution to GDP was at around 14%.
Yes,
12%. 12%.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
By 2022, it had dropped down to 7%.
7.2.
And that's why I'm saying, because other sectors had also come in.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that time, between 2012 and 2022, are we saying that the contribution of taxes by the manufacturing sector to the coffers had grown?
Yes, it's been growing. This is actually our biggest contributor to taxes, yes.
Are we also saying that the foreign direct investment coming into Kenya and going directly to manufacturing in those 10 years grew?
At some point it came down, but I think, for example, if I look at the last 3 years, we have been on an upward trajectory, yes. Okay. Except, of course, during COVID time and those kind of issues, yes. But if you look at the number of new factories being opened, I would say from where I sit, every week we have, we even did an industrial mapping. We actually have done a mapping now, exercise for Nairobi County alone. And we have 5,300 new factories, but we have this on our website now.
5,300?
Yes, and so you can see...
In how long?
No, this is the total.
Okay.
This is the total. So I know that when a big old factory like Rivertex or Everready dies, we give it quite a lot of prominence. Yes. But if you go around Nakuru, if you live there, you definitely know that we've had small new... Okay, the factory of the future is different from the one that we know. In the past, we had big, old, but the factory of the current is small. So you see one warehouse, and we are able to produce a lot of things. Yeah. So if you go around Nakuru and you have been living there in the last 10 years, you can ascertain that actually more factories have opened around Nakuru than before.
Dr. Mukhwana,
yes.
Have the number of people employed in the manufacturing sector grown?
Remember, we're also changing technology. So the fact that industry is growing does not mean that the numbers will grow, because...
So they have not... So the number has not grown.
Remember also there's automation coming in. So you have to put in a lot of factors. That the new factories may not employ as many as what Rivertex used to do, because that was a manual thing, Zoya Sugar. The new factories are quite different. And yeah, that's so they may not, the numbers may not grow, but because of the new technology. Remember, AI is here. There is a lot of automation. I visit those factories. Today I'm going to Isuzu, and I know that, for example, today you can assemble a whole car with robots.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that.
So we have more money coming to go into manufacturing.
Right.
Yes.
We have more factories opening.
Yes.
But we have fewer people employed.
Yes, it's possible.
So the contribution of manufacturing to our GDP is down. The number of people being employed, not growing. Those are the biggest.
Has actually dropped.
Yeah, has dropped actually. So then those are the biggest indicators of growth from the perspective of a Kenyan and the economy, right? It's, am I getting employment? And then from an industry perspective is, what is this industry contributing to our GDP, right?
Yes.
So then can we say manufacturing is growing or industry is growing again if it's not being felt from a GDP perspective, if it's not being felt from an employment perspective?
Especially from the GDP perspective. Remember, if you roll back 20 years ago, there was no Safaricom, for example. Today, Safaricom is our biggest company in East and Central Africa, isn't it?
Yep.
And so, if you factor in industrialization in 2000 with no Safaricom, and with manufacturing 2025 and the Safaricom, definitely it will be a different story. You have an SGR. All these things take up different. So what I would say is the share of manufacturing to the GDP will reduce, not because manufacturing is going down, but because you have other people coming in, new sectors emerging. Look at our ICT, look at our startup ecosystem. Look at our digital ecosystem. And
they say a diversified, such a diversification is good for an economy.
Yes.
Why?
So that you are not relying. You see, if you rely on one sector to contribute a lot to your, then of course, if it collapses, so I would say manufacturing has faced challenges, as I said, since structural adjustment. Right. But we have since adjusted ourselves. And remember, the factory of the past was a government establishment. Let's be clear. 1960, 1970, the factories that we had were all government owned. They were not run very efficiently. So even in spite of what I'm talking about, structural adjustment. So that's why, for example, if let's look back, the sugar industry where I come from, all of them were government owned, and they all ran into headwinds. So if you look at what has happened this year, is the government has decided we'll privatize them, because the future of industry is to be owned by the private sector. If you look at competitiveness, there's no country in the world that has industrialized by government running industries. The role of government is to be a good referee, to bring rules and regulations and then leave the private sector to go. Right. And so we're still transiting. Remember, if we really want to grow our manufacturing, Kenyans must realize that it's actually their job to industrialize this country. And I've always said it, because sometimes when I get questions, it looks like I'm a PS for industry. So when I go to my Western homestead, people come and say, oh, so you are a PS for industry. Yes. So how many industries have you brought? And I said, no, that is not my work. My work is to create a level playing field that will allow Eric and others to yes. So I have not brought industry. So remember that even in this mindset, some of us are still in this mindset. Okay, government stepped in 1963 because there was a void.
Let's take a break, PS. We'll come back into this conversation. 28 minutes after 8. We are hosting Dr. Juma Mukhwana. He's the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Industry. The ministry is the longer one. MITI. It's Investment, Trade and Industry. Yes. Back in a moment.
Nampande MITI.
Sawa.
Our fixers online engaging on this particular conversation that we're having. Peter Ochieno says, yes, technology has changed industry and manufacturing as well. But he also comes in and says, actually growing quite a lot, quoting what you were saying. A new factory can start today, but in Q4, it's in debt and it closes. Due to debt, taxes, it's closing. Charles Noah is wondering, where are these factories? Can he name a few of them for us to follow up? You'll come back on that. Then he goes in and says, Nestle, Unilever, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they were not government owned in the 60s and they thrived.
Yeah.
How are they doing currently? Kibaki made them thrive again. Then the next administration murdered them. Respond, PS.
Thank you. As I say, Eric, I think we are stuck on what do we actually call an industry. For example, of air, we were discussing, let's look at the case of, for example, Kirinyaga County alone. In the last 3 years, 9 new factories have been opened. And we are also building the County Aggregation and Industrial Park, which I'll talk about. But if you go to Kirinyaga today, there is Kavagara that has come up in a big way, that are doing animal, flour. We have a big animal feeds factory that has come up. I know my friend at Nice Rice has now moved into big milling again of wheat, also maize. I know that there is a Sagana Oil that is doing avocado. This is one county. But you see, so sometimes I said, okay, it's good to mourn when, remember industry, sometimes I think we don't appreciate that human beings grow, get old and die. Industries also do it. Every year, globally, whether you're in China or Japan, 1 to 3% of the industries will die because the technology is getting out of date, because there is no proper succession plan. Sometimes, because some of these factories are owned by families, if you have not put in a proper succession plan, some of them don't have a good business plan. Some of them face new competition that they are not able to come up with. Remember, this is a business. And contribution to sustaining industry may be 10%. The other 90%, I can rely on the owners. Do they have a good, are they changing technology? Because when technology is changing and other people, competitors are coming in, the factories must keep ahead of themselves. So sometimes it's very easy to say this factory died because the government didn't do that. Remember, we are not shareholders. Some of these, I've seen factories that die because the owner has died. And we've seen it because there was no proper succession plan. There's competition that comes in. For example, we are talking about technology. You have a factory that is consuming heavy electricity. Somebody brings in a lighter machine and they're able to outcompete you. So remember, this is a space where new factories are being born. All others technologies have to die because if you cannot reinvent yourself. I come from, Eric, from a county just, that is the last one. Let's look at the case of Pan Paper. For example, this was a government factory, 1972. Okay? So I talked to my people in Bungoma and they say, oh yeah, this was our factory. Eric, if you look at 1972 technology, trying to make paper in 2025, for lack of a better word, you're actually talking about, there's no factory there. What you're talking about is scrap metal, if I was to be honest. But the Kenyan will still see, if you look at the technology that is Everready was using in Nakuru, that is 1953 technology. In our view, we say, oh yeah, why is this thing dying? If Everready cannot re-engineer itself and bring in new technology, there's no way they're going to keep pace. And that is exactly, so the government has a role.
That's 10%.
But also we have a small role, but again,
everyone else.
Everyone else must play their role.
Their role as well. I agree with you completely, and you're absolutely right. And I know the ministry is doing quite a lot, even around reform and decomplicating sometimes some of these things. The 10% that government and the ministry plays is also a very critical 10%. Because it speaks to the investment environment, to, yes, a conducive environment in general. So a lot of the times, the pushback is that the industries are dying because of maybe an inconsistent tax regime. You know, things are changing. One day, you're VAT exempt. The next day, you are zero rated. One day this, one day that. One day your inputs come in at this rate, the next day at that. So speak to those challenges, how you're streamlining them. I know special economic zones have also seen quite a lot more regulation than before. and what that does for industry. But yeah, those challenges as well can't be overlooked. And I know, like I said, the ministry is also doing quite a bit. So you can also share with us what the ministry is doing. But let's start with, from an investment perspective, things can be very, very hard to predict as far as our, regulations are concerned.
Thank you, Mariam. Actually, if you look at our taxation is very, very clear. And how does it go? It goes like this. If you are importing into this country raw material for you to use for your industry, any raw material, import duty, 0. If you are importing intermediate products, this means they are semi-processed. So maybe parts of a motorbike. So something has already been, processing has taken place, then the taxation is 10% import duty. If you are bringing a finished product for which we don't have sufficient capacity to produce, it is 25%. If you are bringing a finished product for which we have a lot of capacity, we charge you 35%. So we have a 4-band taxation structure, and this is an East African system. So sometimes I see people say, oh, Kenya is not competitive. The way we are taxing is the way Tanzania is taxing, is the way Uganda is taxing, because this is the common external tariff that we have agreed across East Africa. So it's very clear. But also what I know,
the predictability of it as well.
No, that is exactly what it is. If you bring raw material today, it is 0. So you don't have even to think about it.
If I'm, for example, manufacturing, let me use, what can I use as an example that moved from VAT, from 0 rated to exempt? For example, that's whichever one of my inputs moves from being 0 rated to being tax exempt, I can no longer claim.
Usually the challenge that we have,
I can no longer claim that 16%
the challenge that we have.
So then I pass that on to the consumer. I don't know what next year
Remember
will look
what this government is doing is to protect you. So if you bring raw material, you are taxless. If you bring a finished product, which is coming to compete with our factories, that's where we go to 35%. But also, I think within our investments, we have, how do you call it? Sometimes what we are calling manufacturers, some of them are actually pure importers. So some of the noise that you hear is an importer who wants to bring a finished product, and maybe has been bringing because of different reasons. Sometimes when you have a shortage of a finished product, then we remove tax. And that's what happens sometimes. For example, we know that we have a shortage of sugar. We can't produce enough. And so sometimes you say, okay, it's a finished product, but because we don't have sufficient local capacity, we can remove tax because you're not killing anybody by bringing it. So there's a lot of consideration that goes into this dynamic. And then some people get used to it. So when sugar production goes up and we say, now you can't bring this thing duty-free, then you are told, no, we are not predictable. But you see what government is looking at. For example, if a few years ago, we didn't have anybody producing ceramic tiles, these tiles that we use in the house. And so the taxation was 10%. But then we have new companies that have come up, Keda and Kajiado and others. And so what have we done? Now we have pushed tiles to 35%. Somebody who used to import tiles duty-free because we didn't have them will say, this thing is unpredictable. But government is saying, we have to increase the tax to protect this person who has invested here. So sometimes what you're calling unpredictable, actually we watch that space. Today, if you have paper, for example, pan paper collapsed. So we used to have very high taxation on paper to protect pan paper. Then pan paper dies, which means that if you continue taxing and there's no local production, you're increasing the cost of packaging. So then we reduce tax on paper, imported paper, because we don't have local capacity. So that is the space that we are in. And so it's not unpredictable, it's just realistic. That we look at, if you have a new factory, like sanitary towels, for example, most of them were duty-free. I remember even though somebody was saying, oh, why are you taxing the sanitary parts? But now we have 4 or 5 new factories that have come up that are making diapers. These are things that we are not doing, pads. And so we put tax. Then someone say, no, you are taxing my periods. You see what I mean?
But
So the emotional part. Wait a minute.
Example on that one.
So the emotional part takes over. So now somebody say, oh, you're taxing my periods. But you see what they're saying? Now we have somebody producing sanitary pads. So we can actually tax imported pads
Right.
to support this person that has invested.
Doc, in theory, sounds great.
Yes.
But qua ground, the reality is the factories that are producing sanitary pads in Kenya don't have the capacity yet to supply all of Kenya with sanitary pads. That's one. Two, it's the issue of the accessibility and affordability of even the local products. Ideally, they should get to a place where the local factories are much cheaper, right? And we're able to get them at that price so that if you're importing, it makes sense that you're charged more. But from an accessibility point of view, the fact is they're still almost at par, and the current factories don't have the capacities. So with that specific one, I get the logic of grading, of the grading and how, if we have the capacity to produce it locally, then when you import a finished product, you should be charged more. But specifically with the sanitary pads one, the local factories didn't have the capacity to supply the entire of Kenya with sanitary pads. That's
Is that
number
so?
one.
Remember capacity.
This is me speaking to people in the industry.
I agree with you.
Manufacture pads.
I agree with you, because when you start going into this sector, part of how we encourage people to invest in that sector. For example, look at clinker. When this government came in, clinker was zero. Clinker is material that we used to make cement.
Yeah.
And people were importing this from Egypt duty-free. What did we do? We put an export promotion levy on it of 17.5. What has happened then? Since 2023, we've now opened a clinker factory in West Pokot. Rice Cement in Kisumu is putting up a clinker factory. Bamburi Cement is putting up a clinker factory in Mombasa. So you can see that sometimes we are importing, but the local material, the raw material that we need to make clinker, which is limestone, we have it. But you see, because we had made it so easy to import, somebody was wondering, why should I make this thing?
Should I invest
So sometimes you have to create the pain point. And when these people come in, I agree with you. Sometimes also Kenyans are quite complicated. Let me just say something about pads.
Just the pads,
Let me come to pads.
Just the pads.
Also, Kenyans, we also like foreign goods, whether it's shoes, whether it's pads. So sometimes we don't, as Kenyans, remember, if we can't support our factories, then they can't grow. So sometimes also...
Doc, I'll have to stop you on that one, because you're implying that the pushback was because people don't want to buy local sanitary pads. They want the big brands from elsewhere.
Yes.
But no, that's not the case. The case is, like I said, one, and you've agreed, the local factories don't have the capacity to supply.
Growing. Every year
it will grow,
it's growing.
But because it's a need, not a want, to tax it and make it more inaccessible for women is a disservice to them.
But
this
now,
is not, did we get
to a point?
But now let me explain to you.
Did we get to a point where?
Yes.
Have we gotten to a point where the local manufacturers of sanitary pads are actually selling everything that they are making?
Yes, they are selling.
They do.
And remember, if you allow the flooding of that, then you'll actually kill the little initiative that they have. So if you increase the tax, the idea then is make the imported pads a little bit more expensive, so that you support the local, you incentivize this one who has invested. And remember,
but if the local one doesn't have the capacity, there's a gap here of women not being able to access the sanitary pads.
But Mariam, I think also that argument is like the way they go to court and they tell you, you're coming here in anticipation of something.
Yes.
Have we gotten to a point where we do not have the supply locally because of taxation?
We've not gotten there.
Okay. So
we've gotten to the point where we're crowding people out of access to pads.
But is it in
from a price perspective? This logic, let me just finish.
Yeah.
This logic works for a phone, for a cup, for a mug, not for a good that is a basic necessity for women. You don't play around with industry when it's something that is of an issue of dignity for so many women.
I completely agree.
So that's why I'm saying, if the local factories are able to supply, and then it's okay to say, you know what, 35% for you bringing in a finished product. But when you make imported pads more expensive, what you're doing is just crowding out so many women from being able to access pads.
I spoke to an association of those guys.
Yes.
And there were some of them were saying that they're actually producing at 60% of installed capacity. So there's still extra capacity for them
that they can produce
to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I want to come back into what we were saying about, you know, and you mentioned the case of Kirinyaga, where in the last 4 years you've seen a growth of new factories opening and coming up, and looking at whether this is then an indicator that our industries are growing. I juxtapose that with what you had said earlier, that even our Vision 2030 was talking about, let's see whether we shall become a middle-income industrializing nation by 2030. And then you said, maybe this vision did not address the who is industrializing. And this is proof that Kenyans are willing to invest in industry. The case of Kirinyaga, for example, with the 4 that have come up. But is the view of the government those small industries as industries, or does the government view industry as big industry that's employing 10,000 people and so on and so forth at government level?
Thank you. First of all, for us to support government, industry, we've done a number of things. Remember, if you're manufacturing for 55 million Kenyans, for some products, then you don't have sufficient customers to uptake your products. So one of the areas that we've done as government is to open up the market. And that's why we are part of the EAC, that instead of you making products in Kenya to sell to 55 million, we have joined up with Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, South Sudan to create a market of nearly 400 million. And for us, if you make a product in Kenya, it can be sold to any of those 8 countries, duty-free, quota-free. So we've opened up that market. And Tanzania will also sell in Kenya. Of course, you know that we have issues. Uganda also, whatever they make, they sell across. So we've done that. We're also part of the AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we are trying to be part of this big 1.4 billion market. You know that we just concluded the Kenya-EU Economic Partnership Agreement, where you can now sell nearly 14,000 products to the European Union, 27 countries, duty-free, quota-free, and again, already we are selling, so it's not like it's a new place. If you see that we are the second largest seller of flowers in Netherlands, we are selling coffee, we are selling tea, avocado, macadamia, all these products, flowers, horticulture, but we are saying now the market has opened up even bigger. We already have an agreement with the UK, again, on similar grounds, United Arab Emirates. So we've opened up the market. So we are telling Kenyans, don't just come into manufacturing for Kenya. And that's, again, answers your question, that you don't even have to make parts for Kenya. Think East Africa, think Africa, think global, if you are competitive. And that's where the issue comes in, that in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, that you're able to produce a product that can go across the market. The other issue that we have also realized is entry. I talked about who is going to industrialize Kenya and why Kenyans don't go into manufacturing, because in the past, manufacturing was a very expensive venture. You buy the land, you do, change of user, you build a factory, you put up a factory and you run. So many of us saw that process as very tedious and very expensive. What has the government done? Several things. We have done what we call plug and play. So we have the EPZ, for example, in Athi River, where we have about 400 factories there. We've built a place. Yours is to bring the machinery, the electricity is there, the water is there, the sewage is there. You only get your machine and the workers and you move. And we've done that. And we're also replicating that in Dongokundu. Now the Afri-Exim Bank, working with the government of Kenya, already a tender has been issued for the construction of Dongokundu and Naivasha special economic zones. We also have private special economic zones like Tatu City and others that are also enjoying even better tax incentives, where you have a 10-year tax holiday. If you put up a factory, you're not going to pay. But for the small people, we have put up the county aggregation and industrial parks. And if you go to Kirinyaga now, we are 100% complete. Embu, we are just about 97%. Meru, about 100%. Dan, Homa Bay, Migori, Wasingishu. So these parks are coming up. And the way we are doing it, two options. So once we are building the industrial parks. This is for the small people in Kenya that want to go into manufacturing.
Yep.
So the way we are doing it, you can now bring your avocado processing plant into Kirinyaga. For example, we advertised. We were quite impressed we advertised for people to take up space. And in Kirinyaga, we only have 8 spaces. So potentially 8 industries at the Cape. Right. We have a total application of 58 people. So working with the county governor, the 8 have been allocated, and she has even decided now to do her own extra Capes because there are other people, and some of them we are saying, okay, if you can't fit into this, we can give you land at this place for you to put up your own. So it's quite interesting.
Here's a question.
Yes.
When you go into Capes,
yes,
what tax incentives do you get?
Cape is not for export.
Here is the issue. Now, here is my issue.
This is for local production.
So here is my issue.
Yes.
The ones that are getting tax incentives are where you want a big manufacturer to come and set up here.
And for export.
And for export.
Yes.
Special economic zones and export processing zones.
Yes.
Or even the private ones.
Yes.
What is the incentive for the small manufacturer who wants to start a manufacturing plant in this country? What incentive do they have? If you walk into many supermarkets today, just around Nairobi, you'll find several maybe brands of honey,
coffee, tea,
and such.
Yeah.
And you can see that these are actually small industries that have come up, and they're doing something to process. They're going to farmers, they're collecting honey, they're coming, they're cleaning it up, they're packaging, they're putting it in supermarkets, and they're trying to sell. What incentives do those have? And that's why I asked the question, does the government see a small person putting up a small industry as an industry? Right. Or does the government only think of industry when it is foreign money and that is coming in here to employ 10,000 people?
Right.
Because we have very many Kenyans who are setting up industry. They close because they don't have support. They don't get any tax incentive. They don't get any capital incentive for accessing cheaper credit. They don't get any of that. They don't even get power.
Let me piggyback onto that.
Yes.
With the cost of compliance is also drowning them, especially when they're smaller.
Yes.
Yes. If you think about it, I started by describing, if you wanted to do your own factory, you buy land in Kiambu at 200 million per acre. You'll do change of user. If you were to build a factory, even a warehouse, a standard warehouse would be 30 million.
Yeah.
If you bring the machinery. So you see, if you're talking about incentive, CAIBS is actually an equivalent of affordable housing. Remember, we are building them on government land. So the cost of land is taken off from your balance sheet. We are bringing, each CAIB has electricity. We are bringing water. We are doing the sewage system. We are doing common security. So if you think about incentives, you have actually taken off 70% of what stops Kenyans from going into industry. So even before we talk about taxation, this thing is based on a government piece of land. We have already built the structure for you. We've brought the water for you. Where you would have struggled with Kenya Power, we're actually building a power station on each of the CAIBs. So I would say that in terms of, we are still thinking about the tax.
This is a solution.
Yes.
It's one line of a solution in terms of addressing capex,
especially the entry.
At entry level.
Yeah, the entry level.
Those that are in existence, those that have already started. The other 35 minus 8, those that did not get a space in Kirinyaga.
Yes.
What about them? They have ideas. They are ready to roll. What about them?
We are still evolving that space.
Those that are already right now have started.
Doing the honey and so on.
They are doing honey, they are doing juice, they are doing food.
We have another.
They are having a problem, like Mariam was saying, with just even compliance. How many people knock at their door? Sisi ni Nema, sisi ni KRA, sisi ni Kanjo, sisi ni nini, sisi ni this and the other. Watu wa stima wamekuja, sijui stima imekatiwa wapi kwa Kikingi. It's there basically just getting frustrated and pushed out of business. Does the government see them as investors?
Yes, those are very serious investors. And For example, okay, I know that on the taxation end, we've not figured out, but we have something called Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, for example, where one of the things that I do on a quarterly basis, Eric, is to monitor what this government has said is that 40% of all our procurement as government agencies, whether you are military, you see we are shoes, military uniform, we is to buy from local people. So we're also buying from them, but I agree on the taxation, especially with the establishment of the county governments. I agree that there is regulatory overreach. Sometimes there's overload of that. And I know that within the Parliament of Kenya, there is a bill now on harmonization of taxation between the counties and the national government. There's something coming up because, yes, they have talked about double taxation. Sometimes there's a lot of cess when you move raw materials. So those are issues that we are aware of. And there's a bill in Parliament today called the County Harmonized Taxation Bill, which is hoping to address, even to standardize, because you find what Nakuru is charging, what Kirinyaga is charging, what Kiambu is charging is not the same. So that's an evolving space, but yes, from where I sit, we can do better.
PS, we thank you very much for joining us today. And we'll keep inviting you so you can come and ask ourselves, so where are we in terms of just bringing up more industries in this country?
But also, before you close up, we want more Kenyans to go into manufacturing. Kenya, I always say this, Japan was industrialized by the Japanese, China was industrialized by the Chinese. Kenyans must industrialize their country. So we must know that the work of industrializing Kenya is our work. And I want more Kenyans to go into manufacturing, start small, and let's grow together.
Dr. Juma Mukhwana, PS for Industry. In the next hour, lest we forget, Agnes Wanjiru died many years ago. Who killed her? Who dumped her body in a septic tank in Nanyuki? We'll be asking our family spokesperson, Esther Njoki, how far they've gone with that. It's 9 a.m.